Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing. Tonight, we are here at the North Wilkesboro Speedway to kick off season number 11 of competition here for this series. Feels like just a day ago we crowned Mr. Mike Sukup as our champion of season number 10, and just like that, we're getting back into the swing of things here. And I'll tell you what, race fans, what better speedway to do it at than a speedway that not only has a whole lot of history in real life competition, but the speedway where this league all began back in December 21st, 2020 for the very first Oval Series race in the street stock. That race was won by Terry Grindell, and a couple of times since this speedway has made its way onto our calendar, but tonight it's going to be for all the marbles. A whole lot of drivers looking to try and start their season off on the right foot, and we got a whole lot of new faces out in the field, a whole lot of returning faces too as well. So how about we take a look down at our starting lineup, see how things will be shaken out here for round number 1 of the season. Starting out on the pole here this evening, driving the number 62 machine, that is going to be TJ Henson. She made her rookie debut here last season, just 2 races prior to tonight's event, and here she is taking the pole in that number 62 race car's entry. Starting her outside in the number 72, that is going to be the SM Racing entry of Mr. Jeremy Morrow. Back in position number 3, look at that, it's the other half of the SM Racing Products team, and that's going to be Garrett Streets, rolling off position number 3. Fourth place can go back to the 85 of Brian Sabelski, 4-time champion here in the ASRC Oval Series, brought it on home third to close out Season 10's championship. He's looking to see if he can't make it number 5 here this season. Speaking of number 5, the driver back in the 5th position, that's going to be the number 27 Dirt TV entry of Mr. Johnny Bell, the man, the myth, the legend, making his first debut here in the ASRC Oval Series in over 3 seasons here tonight. We'll just have to see if he manages to make that dirt experience work for him here on these asphalt late models. He's actually not gotten behind the wheel of a late model since iRacing released these brand new late model stock cars 2 seasons ago. So definitely a driver we'll have to keep an eye on. Back in the Alrighty, race fans, we are back. Had a little bit of technical difficulties there. Looks like someone might have just outright pulled the plug on the broadcast, but we are back here in all the racing action. Currently 12 laps in the books. Garrett Streets is your race leader at the moment. Side by side between Brian Sabelski and Jeremy Morrow going down into 3 and 4. Morrow is going to fall back just a little bit. Whole rest of the field currently all single file. TJ Henson has fallen all the way back to 5th place in these past couple laps, though. On the other hand, though, Nico Morelli up 6 spots in these first 13 laps in that number 14 Justin Wilson Memorial entry. A little bit further back in the field, drivers trading positions all over the place. Nick Cashman down there in the Elevate number 5. He's fallen back 3 positions, looking to try and get around that 93 of Jason Gardner, see if he can't start slowly but surely clawing his way up into the top 5 here this evening. For sure, we may be here in round number 1 of the season. We've got a whole lot of racing left to go before we can declare a champion, but you really want to start yourself off on the right foot. Every single position you can gain early on in this event matters. A bit of a wiggle further back in the field. That's Caleb Sloan. Sloan having a little bit of a wiggle back there in that 17. Another driver making their rookie debut start here this evening in the Dragons Horde number 17 entry. Making his first start here with the league, and again really loose coming out of the corner in that 17 machine. Something is not tuned the way he needs it to be under the hood of that machine. Currently call it about 2 seconds back from the rest of the field, and closest battle on the speedway is about right here between Jason Gardner and Nick Cashman. Cashman's actually going to give Gardner a little bit of a nudge there. Gardner's going to be going way high up the speedway. Will Cashman be able to capitalize on it? Looks like the answer is going to be not quite here, as we are 18 laps in the books, and Derek Murphy is starting to feel the heat and trouble. That's a driver around. That's Nick Cashman sideways through the corner. He's going to lose a couple of positions just like that. Not quite enough to bring out the caution flag. He does still have it pointed in the right direction here this evening, but that was a scary sight to see for the driver of the number 5 on his paint scheme, 55 on our timing and scoring sheet. Currently down 4 spots from where he qualified here this evening. Still inside the top 10, but he's now on the outside looking in for that top 5 position. He's got some work to do if he wants to make that ground back up. Further back up in the mid-pack, look at the driver of that number 27 machine. That's going to be the driver out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Dirt TV driver of Mr. Johnny Bell. Like I mentioned right before we had those technical difficulties earlier, Johnny, one of the men who makes everything in this league happen, but was unfortunately unable to compete for, call it about a little over 3 seasons. Definitely great to see him out here on the racetrack once again, and exciting to be seeing him try and conquer the beast that is this new late model stock cars, because the last time he competed here in the league, this car did not exist here on the iRacing.com platform. It was the old Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS late model that had been on the platform since around 2010, so brand new 2023 updated equipment for these drivers to be working with. Jason Gardner falling back a little bit more here, side by side with Derek Murphy. Murphy rocking a brand new livery here this evening, that pink and green Woo car number 78, maybe embracing his fans' traditions a little bit much there. And I think actually, if I'm reading it correctly, across the banner of that number 78 is twitch.tv/Valnar. Valnar, of course, the man who started the whole joke in the first place, now immortalized in the paint scheme of a late model stock car, currently running back in the 8th position. Derek Murphy down a spot from where he qualified. He is on the tail end of the closest battle on the speedway, the battle between these 4 cars, all duking it out for 5th through 8th. TJ Henson leading this pack. She's got a little bit of a gap to work with, but then Jason Gardner is all over the tail end of Johnny Bell. League admins duking it out for the 6th position here. Gardner is really right up in there, right behind him. That bumper is almost to the quarter panel. I don't think Jason's necessarily the kind of driver that would be utilizing the bumper, especially before the halfway point in the race, but he is getting really close there in that number 93 machine. At some points going even less than a 1/10 of a second of gap between these two late model drivers. And of course, Gardner does have that extra season of experience under his belt with the late model stock car compared to Johnny. So he has a little bit more experience to be working with here, but so far Johnny is doing a pretty good job of holding him off. And I say that a little bit of a nudge there. Johnny's going to get sent up high. Almost lose it there in that number 27 machine. Manages to hold on to it, but that's going to allow Derek Murphy to get around to him without too much to worry about. A little bit further back in the field, though, Patrick Dixon has caught on up to Caleb Sloan, and it looks like Sloan is having some serious handling issues under the hood of that 17 machine, having to go way up high and getting really wiggly off the corner. That's going to filter Sloan on back to the 11th position, put Patrick Dixon up a spot in that number 2 Advanced Auto Parts entry. Dixon, not a rookie driver here this season, but he did make his debut last season. Finished off, looks like 15th in the championship standings. So he managed to attend the National Fairgrounds Speedway race, managed to attend the USA International Speedway race. The final 2 races of the season, but now he's out here with a clean palette and a fresh start in that number 2 machine, looking to see what he can do when he has a full season at his disposal to be working with. A little bit further up in the field, Johnny Bell starting to get some pressure from behind. Nick Cashman is back in the picture here after that little bit of a bobble earlier on. Starting to close the gap on the number 27, and sure enough, he's going to pull on, or at least try to pull on down alongside going into turn number 1 there. Not quite close enough to make it happen. But that number 5 machine, he is really pushing here this evening. Last time by a full 0.15 seconds faster than Johnny Bell was, and just like that, he's closed the gap even further. And we've got trouble. Caleb Sloan getting a little bit loose off the corner. He's going to be pulling it on down to pit lane. And I don't think that is going to be a scheduled pit stop for the driver of the number 17 machine. Sure enough, Caleb Sloan is still on pit lane. They are putting tires on that late model stock car, so this might actually be a scheduled pit stop. But if so, this is going to be a very early one. I'm not sure if Sloan's going to have the necessary fuel to make it to the end of this thing, so we will just have to keep an eye on that number 17 machine. But at the same time, you know what, why not? You're at the tail end of the field anyways. You might as well try a little bit of strategy that's off the plan and see if you can't make some positions up that way. Now, as it stands right now, that is going to be moving Sloan down 2 laps, but we did have a little bit of a rule change here over the offseason for the ASRC Oval Series. Caution laps do count again, and with that, that means drivers will be eligible to earn Lucky Dog waiver rounds again. So these drivers' races aren't over anymore if a caution comes out halfway through the pit cycle. So I'd imagine several drivers out here in the field, especially like Mr. Tyler McRae, would be very happy to hear that. He was a driver who had multiple instances of having a really solid race performance and then getting trapped a lap down when the caution came out right after he did his pit stop. Fortunately, none of the Drop and Bombs racing team members able to make it out here this evening, so a little bit of a disadvantage going into the championship later on in the season. But we've got 4 drop weeks for a reason. even with them not able to attend North Wilkesboro here this evening, we could definitely still see them show up later on in the future. And who knows, with all these new names in the field, they might just have some new faces to contend with for the championship. Speaking of championship contending drivers, up at the field of this thing, that's going to be the number 15 of Mr. Garrett Streets, one half of the SM Racing team. The folks who help put this show all together, SM Racing Products on Facebook. They make all sorts of sim racing equipment, and here he is up here leading a race. Maybe that gear he's put together is just managing to help him out here. Actually, looking through the field, Garrett Streets is the only driver in the field right now. Out of the 5 past races we have done at this speedway, Garrett Streets is the only driver in the field right now who has won a race here. And now he's looking to make it number 2. And if he does manage to make that happen, he will be the first driver here in the league to get 2 wins at this speedway. Of course, it's a little bit too early to be saying that. We still aren't even halfway through tonight's event. Still got a bit of a ways to go. But right now, Garrett Streets is looking mighty fast here on the speedway. Currently last time by about 4 tenths faster than the whole rest of the field. Further back in the back, Nick Cashman has gained another spot. He managed to get around Derek Murphy. That's going to move him back up to 7th. He's still down 1 position from where he qualified, but he is making back from that deficit when he got loose coming out of turn number 4. TJ Henson also going to be making up a spot on Jason Gardner right there. Jason is right behind her though. That number 93 machine, he hasn't really made contact with any of these drivers yet, but he has always been right there within bumper striking range. And right now, seeing these 2 drivers up in front of him 2 by 2, this is exactly what he wants to see. Nico Morelli and that 14 machine is going to be stuck up to the high side. Almost a little bit of contact there between himself and Jason Gardner, but they are still duking it out. Going down into turns 3 and 4, but Gardner is going to have the advantage. He is going to make the pass stick. Nico Morelli now stuck up on the high line, and now we're going to have to see, will Nick Cashman be able to capitalize on Morelli getting stuck up there as well? Or maybe Morelli will back it down, try and close that door, but not quite. Now he's going to be pulled up alongside Nick Cashman. Side by side down the front stretch. Will Morelli close the door? No, he's going to leave it up. They make contact with each other. That's going to send Morelli a little bit high up the speedway, and a little bit of a nudge back to Cashman there. But Morelli is going to fall back here. Just like that, Morelli down 2 positions, but still up 3 from where he qualified. Morelli, I don't believe, was able to turn a qualifying lap here this evening, so really any positions he can make up so far in this race are definitely an advantage for him to be having. Last season, Morelli, no wins to his name, but he did get a couple of podiums, managed to bring it home 8th in the championship standings, just behind our race leader of Garrett Streets. And Morelli, he's got a fast race car, and honestly, most of last season, he just ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time, involved in unfortunate incidents. But right now, he's looking really solid here this evening. But he's got Derek Murphy and Johnny Bell right behind him, and those are 2 pretty dang fast late model drivers he has to contend with. And Morelli's actually going to slow down and bring it on down to pit lane here. Derek Murphy is going to go way high to avoid him, and that's going to allow him to lose the position to Johnny Bell. Johnny's going to keep it down low, managed to avoid Morelli, but now he's got a position up on Mr. Derek Murphy. All around the field, though, looks like pretty much everyone else is making the decision to come on down to pit lane. Morrow is down there, Streets is down there, Henson, Gardner, Murphy, and Morelli all making their pit stops right now. That leaves just Nick Cashman and Johnny Bell as the 2 drivers still staying out. And I'll tell you what, race fans, that is not a big surprise to me. Of course, Nick Cashman's a rookie driver here, so I can't comment too much on what his strategy is. But Johnny over here, Johnny is notorious for just doing the most unorthodox pit strategies. He sometimes even tries to make zero-stop races happen. And he's had a degree of success with it. I do remember he got a second-place finish back at the Concord Speedway a couple of seasons ago by simply not pitting when every other driver in the field ended up pitting for fuel. So Johnny, he's up here in P number 2. If he waits long enough and gets Cashman to pit, he will put himself up in the lead and at least pick up a bonus point for a lap led. But I would not be surprised if we might see Johnny try to throw a little bit of curveball at these late model drivers, maybe even try and make a zero-stop race work. But of course, here at North Wilkesboro Speedway, 0.625 miles or 1 kilometer in length. He is a driver that is good at fuel saving, but at a track of this size, I don't know if he's going to be able to make it happen. But one way or another, we will have to keep an eye on that 27, see what he manages to make happen here this evening. Further back in the field, though, closest battle on the speedway is going to be the battle between Garrett Streets and Brian Sabelski, the two drivers that will be scored as our race leaders once Cashman and Bill come down pit lane. A little bit of a wiggle there for Garrett Streets, a little bit loose on corner exit. Of course, all these drivers having to get new tires worked in, get them up to temperature. And Nick Cashman is going to be the next driver to pull it on down to pit lane, so that will leave Johnny Bell as the race leader. Johnny will be picking up at least one bonus point here this evening for leading a lap to his name. So now that begs the question of how long is he going to commit to this? We're far enough in the race that he cannot mathematically pick up the additional bonus points for leading the most laps. But I'm curious how confident he feels on his ability to actually stretch the fuel to the end. He's got that 74 of Jeremy Morrow just behind him. Morrow looking to try and unlap himself should a caution flag come out, not have to worry too much about that. But Bell's still setting some pretty solid lap times here. Last time by a 19.42, which actually isn't all that great. He is on substantially older tires than the rest of the field. Last time by Garrett Streets an 18.99, Brian Sabelski a 19.07. Bell still electing to stay out this time by. Nope, last second he changed his mind. Bell's going to be coming on down pit lane. The zero-stop strategy is not going to work, but he will be taking tires that are 10 laps newer than anyone else's in the field, and that honestly might be what it takes to make all of the difference here this evening. With that being cycled out, though, that is going to put Garrett Streets back up as our race leader here on lap number 66. One of the two drivers for SM Racing, his teammate of Mr. Jeremy Morrow, back in position number 3 right now. But that is a massive, nearly 8-second deficit to make up there for Jeremy Morrow and Jason Gardner. That's not going to be easy to do, especially if Jason and Morrow don't work together here to try and catch up to our leaders. If these two elect to battle it out, then I think their chances of getting back up to the front are looking pretty slim here. Of course, there is always the option for a caution flag to come out. We do still have 32 laps left to go. Anything could happen. Still, all 11 drivers out here on the speedway. And actually, scratch that, it looks like Johnny Bell may be retiring here this evening. It looks like Johnny has packed it up and sent it back to the hauler. So that will be leaving us with 10 drivers here on the speedway to sell the score for these remaining 70 laps. 6 of them on the lead lap, 3 of them a lap down. And then Caleb Sloan's being stuck 2 laps down here. And it looks like Sloan might have had maybe a little bit of damage to repair on his pit stop, because his pit stop was a bit longer than anyone else's. And speaking of Caleb Sloan, there's Caleb Sloan right there. Has to worry about Jeremy Morrow and Jason Gardner coming up behind him real fast like here. That 17 machine Pulling it up high, trying to stay out of the way of the drivers on the lead lap, and they're going to send it 3 wide almost. Jason Gardner really loose out of turn number 4. That was a bit of a scare for the driver, the number 93, but he still got pointed in the right direction here, so that's half the battle. Further back in the field, both TJ Henson and Nick Cashman a little bit loose out of the corner there. TJ Henson is going to fall back a position here in that 62. She's currently down 7 positions from where she qualified. TJ Henson was on the pole of this thing when we kicked it off 74 laps ago, currently running back in the 8th position. She's got some ground she needs to make up here tonight in that race car's number 62, running a throwback to a real-world livery run by Bobby McCarty in the Cars Late Model Tour here this evening. Always cool to see some real-world replicas out there on the Speedway, and especially at a track like here, North Wilkesboro Speedway. The Cars Tour race here a couple months ago was quite the experience, and while we don't exactly have the same amount of drivers that were there for that race, it's still been a heck of a fun time here at the North Wilkesboro Speedway. With 25 laps left to go, and the closest battle on the Speedway is actually the battle between our 2 race leaders here, Garrett Streets and Brian Sabelski. They've got a whole 8 seconds of gap to play with. It's just a matter of the 2 of these drivers settling the score here this evening. And Sabelski is closing that gap pretty considerably here. Got it down to a little bit under 0.2 of a second last time by. He's going to fall back a little bit, but he's really putting the pressure down on Garrett Streets. It's going to be difficult for that 15 machine to maintain this pace for the next 23 laps. And Sabelski, he really is right there. He's just waiting for the opportunity to strike, waiting for Garrett Streets to make a little bit of a mistake. And almost a little bit of contact there coming out of turn number 2. Sabelski's going to pull it down low, going into 3 and 4. They're side by side. And Sabelski just barely going to have the advantage crossing the line that time by. They do have a lap car up in front of them to worry about. I think that is Nico Morelli. Sure enough, that is the Justin Wilson Memorial of Nico Morelli up there that these 2 drivers have to worry about. Morelli is going to keep it up high though. Not wanting to get in the way of this battle for the lead either, with 20 laps left to go. Brian Sabelski, he has the lead. Now it's Street's turn to have to go on the offensive here. Once they cross the line, our timing and scoring board updates. Let's see what these lap times are looking like. Last time by, Garrett Streets 0.02 of a second slower than Brian Sabelski. These 2 drivers are setting incredibly similar lap times here. And once again, even more lap traffic up ahead to have to worry about. A little bit loose off the corner for Garrett Streets as they both get around Caleb Sloan. Now they both have to try their hand at Nico Morelli again. Morelli currently being scored as the last car on the lead lap, so he would be pretty dang happy if he were able to hang on to this thing. But it's not going to be an easy feat. And of course, if we do have a caution, he will be the lucky dog, so he will get that lap back. But it's generally preferable to just not go a lap down in the first place. You can see these 2 leaders closing the gap though. Brian Sabelski right behind him in that orange and black McConey Setup Shop entry. And Garrett Streets, he is right there too, and sure enough, Morelli's going to pull it on down and lift off the throttle, just let the 2 of them by, and they're going to keep up their battle for the lead. But now it's Jason Gardner and Jeremy Morrow side by side. Back for position 3 and 4 going down into turns 3 and 4. And they're going to make contact a little bit coming out of 4 there. Fortunately, both drivers keeping it pointed in the right direction, but that's going to throw both of them off their groove a little bit. If they were in a rhythm before, that's going to take a couple laps to get it going once again, but they're still side by side. Gardner is making that outside line work pretty well for him in that Pontiac late model. I'm not quite sure if Pontiac is actually allowed to compete in the Cars Late Model Tour, but that's okay. This is the iRacing.com platform. They can get away with whatever they want on here. That said, it's looking right now like the Ford has a little bit of an edge over the Pontiac right now. Last time by, identical lap times between these two drivers. 12 laps left to go though. Gardner's going to have to really go on the offensive here if he wants to break his way into the top 3, walk away with a podium for the first time here in season number 11. But right now, with how things are looking to shape up, we could see an SM Racing Products podium finish here this evening, and that would be quite the spectacle to see. There's going to be that 17 of Caleb Slobe up in front of the two of them, though. Caleb's going to pull it up high, try and keep it out of the way of the two of them. Sloan's going to actually get up into the wall there a little bit in that Dragon Horde number 17 machine. Sloan now finding himself 3 laps down here this evening. Double high five up in the air though. 10 laps left to go here around the North Wilkesboro Speedway. Jason Gardner, Jeremy Morrow battling it out for the final podium position as Brian Sabelski and Garrett Streets continue to duke it out for the lead. And both sets of drivers having some incredibly close battles here, but Gardner, he's gotten that gap down to less than 1/10 of a second. He's actually going to try and go for the pass on the outside line. Will he be able to make it stick though? Not quite. Jeremy Morrow is still going to hang on to it coming out of turn number 4. 8 laps left to go here at the North Wilkesboro Speedway. 8 laps left to go, and neither of these two late model drivers are giving up, that's for sure. Gardner still trying to make that high line work, and it actually looked like he had it there for a second. And crossing the line, he is going to be scored as having the advantage in this battle, so that outside line is actually working a little bit for Gardner here. 6 laps left to go though. The clock is ticking as Gardner officially clears Morrow. Will we see Morrow strike back though? Really close between these two late model drivers. Morrow was actually about 3/10 slower than Jason Gardner last time by, but with a big high five up in the air, there really is no room for mistakes anymore as Morrow scrapes the outside wall coming out of 4, and the gap widens between himself and Jason Gardner. Morrow's going to get a little bit loose out of 2 as well, so that's going to send Morrow back even further. Call it about 6/10 of a second now between these two late model stock car drivers. Up in the front, Brian Sabelski is our race leader right now. Garrett Streets also falling back a little bit in that SM Racing number 15 machine. With 3 to go, making up that 6/10 of a second deficit is going to be pretty difficult to pull off, especially because Streets is still falling back here. As they cross the line for 2 laps to go, Brian Sabelski going to be 0.11 faster than Streets in terms of lap time. So Sabelski looks like he has this in the bag, just has to cross the line one more time without a caution flag coming out. And he will be good to sail it on home to the finish. White flag up in the air. Brian Sabelski, your race leader, just has to make it 4 more corners around this North Wilkesboro Speedway to make it happen here this evening. And sure enough, heading through 3 and 4, Brian Sabelski is going to be your first winner of season number 11. Garrett Streets and Jason Gardner going to be your drivers rounding out the remainder of the top 3. Jeremy Morrow and Derek Murphy rounding out the top 5 here this evening. And you can hear all these drivers giving it a little bit of a rev in celebration of Sabelski's win, in celebration of a brand new season. But tonight, it's going to be Brian Sabelski's night, and I'll tell you what, That is quite the way to open up the season and start your quest to be a 5-time champion here in the ASRC Oval Series. We will have to keep an eye on this driver and see what he manages to make happen later on in the season. That said, as everyone brings their late models back on down to pit lane, we're going to give everyone just a moment to get themselves situated. Then we're going to see if we can't get some words with your top 3 finishers here this evening. So don't go anywhere, race fans. We will be back in just a moment. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing. Welcome back to North Wilkesboro Speedway, and welcome up into the booth, Mr. Brian Sabelski, taking home the win here at this speedway to kick off the first round of season number 11. How you feeling now that everything's said and done here tonight?
My hand hurts like heck, but I'm fantastically happy with how that went. Garrett got me honest. I got really probably close to blowing out a tire there right before I pitted. So I ended up hitting like on that 54, and I was like on the stretch at the 55, but I was just losing too much time. I'm like, I can't go around one more time. Just deal with it, So I just kind of was like, well, I gotta get in there and get new tires and see if I can make up the time elsewhere.
Well, it certainly seems like you managed to make it happen, but that was still pretty close for the latter half of the race between the two of you. Do you reckon if you pitted when you actually were wanting to before you had to change your mind with that tire, do you think you still would have been able to make it home in victory lane tonight?
Yes. Because it was going to be about one lap earlier, so I think probably I might have lost another half a second or so, but I think I could have made it back. Well, I don't know, half a second, but another tenth or two. So this would have taken me longer to get by Garrett.
Fair enough. You managed to make it work out here tonight. What do you think could have potentially gone wrong there that would have costed you to win?
Someone getting a yellow at a bad time has been kind of the issue I had all last season, was just getting bad yellows at bad times and strategy not working. So like if I'd gone in the pits and I'd go down the lap and there was a yellow, I probably would have been like, yeah, screwed. But yeah, other than that, staying out on a tire too long and having it blow like it did at Phoenix, which I'm still kind of sad about, because I really blew. That should have been a win for me last season, but it is what it is. New season, new start. So hopefully we'll be the first of many here.
Yeah, who knows? You could make it championship number 5 here this season. Of course, I don't want to be jinxing you here on round number 1. But next week, South Boston Speedway, how you feel heading to our favorite little short track here in this league?
Looking forward to it. It usually provides some pretty good racing. We get some new folks here tonight, and they seem awfully nice. And hopefully, we'll get some of the folks that were not here this week. Will hopefully be here next week. I always enjoy racing with everyone. So I would love to see like a 15-car field next week, just for having a lot of people out there, just having a good time, and hopefully we can have a good finish next week too.
Good deal. That sounds like a plan to me. Before we kick you out, though, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Sabelski. Who do you want to thank for being the first winner of season 11?
Well, I think there's a big logo on the front of my car, my hood, and on the quarter panels. That's appropriate enough to thank. So thanks to Jeff and everyone at the McConey Setup Shop team, official setup shop of eNASCAR. Great group of people. I've learned a lot just from working with them. I know I have more to learn, especially learning to kind of probably keep that right front a little more under control. But it's a good group. Yeah, if you're looking for a setup for an open race or a league or something like that, I'm sure check them out. They do good work. Also want to thank, I know he's in here, but Garrett and Jeremy at SM Racing. I was lucky enough to get to test one of their prototype boxes, and I liked it enough that I bought one on my own, and I've been greatly enjoying it. So I know there are sponsors for the league, but they do put together a really solid quality product. I'm very happy with it right now, and yeah, check them out if you're looking for a button box for yourself, especially if you're looking for one that's going to be helpful for oval side of things. It's really the button box I've got is really configured really well for that. So wanted to say shout out to that, and shout out to my girlfriend for putting up with me and letting me do my thing streaming wise and racing wise, and I love her very much.
Good deal. Well, congrats on the win here this evening. Thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week at South Boston.
Yes, sir.
And finishing back in position number 2, one of the 2 drivers of SM Racing, the man that Mr. Sabelski just spent all of that time gushing about, just a little bit shy of the race win here this evening. How are you feeling now that everything's said and done tonight?
Feeling really good. It was a great way to start the season. Really wish I could have finished that one off. One of these days I'll learn how to put a whole entire one together and get the win. But I didn't feel good about it coming in. Practice times were slow. Qualifying made me feel better, a little optimistic. Once we got going, I felt pretty good. We got out to the lead, pulled away quite a bit. Really didn't want to see Brian pit when he did. Really wanted him to have to wait a little bit, because I felt like my best opportunity to win the race was to go as long as possible, just because I was continuing to stretch the lead out. So I was kind of playing the game. I wanted to wait, but I knew that once Brian went in, it forced me into having to pit. I couldn't I couldn't afford to lose track position with him on fresh tires. So, yeah, great opening night. Good field. A lot of familiar faces, a lot of new faces. Good car count. The stands were full. Really glad that everyone came out to Wilkes County this evening. It's glad to see everybody filling the stands. Glad to have you back, Aiden. And yeah, great opening night. Looking forward to the rest of the season.
Good deal. Yeah, definitely a heck of a race, and I'm pretty sure you're going to be taking home the bonus points for most laps led. But next week, South Boston Speedway. How you feel heading to a track much smaller than this one?
Yeah, South Boston is not normally my best track. It seems like the tracks that I don't really like, I tend to run okay at. I really like Wilkesboro, so I was glad to start the season out here and build some momentum. I think last season, if I remember right, didn't go too bad at South Boston, but I think we got caught up in an accident. So, yeah, that's the big thing. We've got a lot of clean drivers in here, a lot of people that, race really respectfully, but South Boston is just one of those places where stuff happens. It's a little boring. I think that's why people love it for what it is. But, so yeah, we'll head off to South Boston. We'll see how it goes, and hopefully keep the car clean. And that's the name of the game. Just make it to the end. So we'll see what happens.
Good deal. That sounds like a pretty solid plan to me. Before I let you head off and celebrate your podium and start getting ready for next week, though, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Streets. Who you want to thank for getting up here on the podium tonight?
Yeah, I want to thank you for broadcasting. Thanks to Jason and yourself for putting everything together. Want to thank Jeremy for being the other half of SM Racing Products. He's the brawn behind the whole thing. He does everything. I'm just here. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I want to thank my girlfriend Morgan for supporting me in my sim racing and my business adventures. Just thanks everyone to be here, and we'll look forward to seeing you all again next week.
Good deal. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Aiden. Have a good one.
And finishing back in position number 3, Mr. Administrator Man himself, Jason Gardner. Starting off the season pretty dang strong. How are you feeling tonight?
Worn out. After messing up the my qualifying attempt and kind of messed up the start. It was pretty much an uphill battle to get all the way to third.
Yeah, it seemed like everyone was having a little bit of trouble tonight, but one way or another, you managed to make it happen, and you are the hard charger here this evening. What do you think might have had to have gone differently for you to be walking away with the checkered flag here tonight?
Probably didn't mess up my qualifying because these cars are not exactly the easiest to pass on any short track, and the top 5 especially were so close in pace. It's like its track position is pretty much everything in this series. So I don't know if I probably would have won, but I definitely probably would have been in contention to win.
Yeah, well, still heck of a race either way. Did you have any doubts in your mind with that battle you had going on with Jeremy Morrow that he might be able to take the position from you here tonight?
I'll be lying if I said I didn't, because like I said, I was pretty much driving the wheels off this car every 100 laps, even past a few cars on the outside. Just like I pretty much looked at my right front tire and said, "I'll apologize as soon as the checker flag drops."
Well, you managed to make it happen here tonight. Hopefully your apologies to your right front are accepted with warm and loving arms, because next week, South Boston Speedway, another bit of a tricky speedway. How you feeling heading into that next week?
Not gonna lie, if I don't feel a little bit worried, because it's a very tight track. It's not one of my best tracks. It's very tight, very narrow. You barely have enough room for 2 cars, but I've seen people try to take it 3 wide before, so I bet. So I'm just gonna do the best I can, prepare for it, and try to get the best finish I possibly can without crashing.
Without crashing is always a good part of the plan to have. But for now, I'll go ahead and let you start getting ready for next week's events. Before you go, though,
I'd like to thank SM Racing Products. They this is the second season they've been on board with us, so I'd like to give a big shout out to them. I also like to thank you for broadcasting this. I think, see, ain't this going to be considered a anniversary for you broadcasting?
technically speaking, it's not exactly on the dot in terms of date, but this would be the 1-year anniversary of me broadcasting for this league. If you just go by week count, yes.
So yeah, I like to give a big thank you to you for one year of broadcasting the Attrition Sim Race Oval Series, and I also like to thank everybody who participated in the race. People are watching. Without y'all, this series wouldn't be where it is.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week at South Boston.
Look forward to see you as well.
You hear it here first, folks. Your top 3 finishers of the night: Brian Zabelski, Garrett Streets, Jason Gardner. Before we send it off, though, how about we take a look down at our race results as they currently stand right now. Of course, these aren't official, but they might as well be. We've never really had a need to disqualify or change any race results in a very long time. So for the time being, you might as well consider these official. Brian Spelsky, Garrett Streets, Jason Gardner, your top 3 here this evening. Jeremy Morrow and Derek Murphy rounding out the top 5 here this evening. Nico Morelli finishing back in position number 6, followed by Nick Cashman, TJ Henson, Patrick Dixon, and Caleb Sloan rounding out the top 10. And Mr. Johnny Bell in that 27 Dirt TV entry, unfortunately being the driver that rounds out the field here this evening. Heck of a race here at the North Wilkesboro Speedway, though. One great way to kick off the season. And next week, South Boston Speedway is a track here in the ASRC Oval Series known to be a little bit chaotic, and that means it's going to be a very fun time. For now, though, that's about all we got here for the ASRC Oval Series. Be sure to tune on back in next week, same day, same time, Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern for round number 2 of the season. And if you want to check out things on the road side of things, we will be starting up the road series again tomorrow, and that broadcast is going to be happening at the Okayama International Circuit at 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. So tune on in. Maybe you'll see your favorite drivers from the Oval Series out there competing as well. But if not, we will see y'all next week at the South Boston Speedway. Thank you all for tuning in, race fans.